What's happening, y'all? So, Douglas Murray, of whom I am a fan, and Dave Smith went on the Joe Rogan podcast recently, and they tried to have a discussion about, I'm guessing, the Palestine Israel situation. I think that's what their main goal was to have a discussion about. They did not really manage to have that discussion, unfortunately, because Douglas was a complete ass. Unfortunately, I like Douglas, and normally I like what he's doing and how he does it. This time, not so much. Somehow, he seemed defensive from the outset, as if he was offended that Dave would moonlight as a geopolitical strategist in some way, and that Joe would have the audacity to host Dave and to pit Dave up against him, the great writer of books and obviously expert on the situation, according to him. And unfortunately for Doug, he did a terrible job of articulating his point, with which I agree. Honestly, I started out agreeing with him. I ended up agreeing with him. He just did a terrible job of making the point. I could have done a much better job. He should have embraced the Madeleine Albright alternative, which was offered to him at one point in the discussion. He did not. He tried to have it both ways, which is, Israel, we're not trying to hurt anybody. Look, they're trying to bomb people, and they're doing it, and I think they should. And, I'm with Madeleine Albright. The price of their security is all these dead, innocent people. It's horrible. It's fucking horrible. It's fucking horrible. That's why war sucks so fucking bad. And that's why you shouldn't attack your neighbor on October 7th. And I get the whole fact that Douglas doesn't get, and that Dave does get, which is, look, you can say, if you're Douglas, or if you're anybody, that the Palestinians voted for Hamas, but not all of them. A lot of them weren't even born when those votes went down. And none of them, I'm sure, were allowed to vote. Like the women, right? Like the poor women, were they allowed to vote? I mean, who are we talking about in here? Now, are those people who should be protected? Well, some of them, I mean, the children, right? I mean, shouldn't we protect the innocents as much as possible? Yes, we should. But what are you going to do? Whisk them out of there? I mean, you're going to smuggle out the babies or something? At some point, the agency, as Douglas points out, belongs to the Palestinians. Now, what you should do is you should allow an exodus. We should allow a huge number of people to just fucking leave. They should be able to go to Syria or Egypt down in the little peninsula there. But they can't stay right adjacent to Israel because, and I mean, I guess there's nowhere to move except, I mean, you could make a big border is what you do. What you do is you move them about 100 miles, and then in the 100 miles, you set up a series of geophysical barriers, dunes or whatever, and basically to protect Israel from any more tunneling from right next door. So that's what Douglas should have said. He did not. Unfortunately, he tried to have it both ways, and he ended up looking like a fool for anybody who understands argumentation. So he also argued the straight neocon position when they talked about Ukraine and Russia. And it's interesting. I mean, it was almost like media talking points. Russia invaded. Putin is the dictator. Like, yes, we know that. That's not the point of the opposition. The point of the opposition is that he was still pushed into that position. It doesn't matter if you were a dictator or a democratically elected leader. If your enemy is moving right up on your doorstep, you do something about it, which is why we stopped the Cuban Missile Crisis and why we should have expected Putin to invade Ukraine. It's not the person who rolls the tanks in necessarily that is the aggressor, okay? That's very important. In war, it there's a strategic positioning that makes potentially makes conflict inevitable, and that is what was happening over there. So if you don't take that into account, you're just being blind to the game itself, and you're falling for the old. You're falling for the false flag. You're going for it. I mean, the first person who rolls tanks. I can't believe that Murray would say that. I can't believe he would fall for that. That's a sophomoric argument. I mean, that's absolutely. I mean, geez, how could he fall for that? But so you've got. Unfortunately, he lost the argument in on Israel Palestine. He lost the argument on Ukraine, Russia. The problem the neocons have is they all say that Russia is intent on expanding to its former Soviet borders, the geographic borders that are easy to defend. And maybe it is. Maybe Putin is. Maybe I'm certain there's huge factions within the Russian government that certainly want to do that. But that involves going up against current NATO allies: Poland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Romania, Hungarian. So, and that would invoke Article 5 and require a nuclear retaliation, even if it was just a small incursion. So I don't see how they are imagining Russia making advancements like that without a dissolution of NATO. So, I'm sure now they're talking about Zihan, who I love also, but he's completely a neocon, and he's floating the conspiracy theory, I'm going to say, that the president is compromised by Russia already, and that they're just feeding him information. He's just doing what Russia wants and dissolving NATO and stuff, as opposed to the reasons that he's articulating why he's doing it, which are also perfectly valid reasons. You can't just throw out Zihan's theories because they're not illogical, but they do require a pretty big leap of imagination in terms of the players involved. And you really have to buy into the media narrative that I guess Trump is a gullible buffoon, but only gullible to Putin. I mean, whenever somebody imagines, he's Putin's puppet. Well, if he's Putin's puppet, how many other people's puppet is he? And if he's a bunch of people's puppet, then who's the real puppet master? I mean, is it, what if one puppet master goes up against the other? I mean, who wins, right? Is it Netanyahu? Is it Putin? I mean, come on, make up your mind. Or is it Trump? Is it the guy who actually ran for president twice, escaped all of the lawfare that was against him, and survived it? It's hard to imagine him as a puppet. So anyway, the unfortunate, or actually fortunate conclusion, whatever, the conclusion of, I should say, the message of the Joe Rogan show with Dave and Douglas is that you can't always count on people to have a civil conversation, even if they're your buds. Unfortunately, Douglas completely missed the assignment. He was a complete ass, not just to Dave, but also to Joe. I mean, it's hard to imagine their friendship survives this. Douglas's suggestion that that Joe have on balanced information or not too much disinformation, like that was such a leftist wokist argument that he was making there. Disinformation, the experts, come on, man. Come on, man. After all we went through, after all we've been through, that's where you're going with this? Totally missed the assignment. Too bad, Doug. But all right.